Hello internet friends, is Star Wars Galaxies Emu worth playing in 2022? That's the question I'm hoping to answer in this video. For those of you who don't know, the emulator, the long-running Star Wars Galaxies emulator, the big one that's kind of started the ball rolling with emulation for Galaxies, has released a new server, started up a new server. The one that's been running, Basilisk, has been going for a number of years at this point, and it was somewhat stagnant, in the words of the developers themselves, that kind of not much progress and not many interest in the servers dwindled over time. So they put up a poll to poll players, would you be interested in playing on your new server? And by the looks of things, by the number of players, Basilisk previously, well, I don't want to talk too specifically about numbers because I'm not 100% certain, but they were a lot lower. And since Finalizer has launched, there's about 800 people regularly playing, so it definitely seems to be, the proof is there that people are playing on this new server. But should you play? I think if you are a fan of old school Star Wars Galaxies, pre-Cu Star Wars Galaxies, then the emulator Basilisk and this team is kind of the OG team, and it's the one for you. I've been struck returning to it after playing Star Wars Galaxies Legends for such a long time. 3 years at this stage. I have been struck by lots of things that are unique to the pre-Cu. In my opinion, the debate about Star Wars Galaxies and which version is the best, I've talked about it in many of my videos. I don't think there is a definitive answer. Not in my opinion. My subjective opinion is that the NG, the late stage NG, which is server like Star Wars Galaxies Legends, is good in its way, and the pre-Cu, which tries to emulate Star Wars Galaxies about 6 months in, sort of the pre-Cu era, the original design intention of those original devs, and it's not going to progress further. That's this particular team, Finalizer, Basilisk, those are the two servers, and the Star Wars Galaxies Emu team. They are trying to recreate that original experience. So if you are interested in that, then this is the one for you, as I've already said. But I don't believe that there is a best. I believe it's what you're after, and there are pros and cons to each version of the game. For instance, in broad strokes, pre-Cu server, which Finalizer is a lot slower. It's going to take more time. Now that sounds like a negative, but not necessarily. The original design for Galaxies was very much like a simulation. You go out into the world and you find resources, you harvest creatures, you tame creatures, and all of these things take time. And later kind of conveniences came along because people were more familiar with the game and wanted things speeding up, and to keep up with releases as well, like World of Warcraft, which was very speeded up the MMO genre greatly, even though it doesn't seem very fast nowadays. The classic WoW, it was at the time, and Star Wars Galaxies was trying to keep up with that. So a lot of these simulation aspects that the emulator reproduces were taken out of the game in the name of convenience and speed and immediate gratification for players. But if you're like me and a lot of people who loved that original version of Star Wars Galaxies, we like the simulation aspects. We don't want too much of that taken out, and the Finalizer server has that. That's the attraction for me. The other attraction is that it's an early stage. As soon as I knew that this was coming, I was like waiting for it, because my favorite part of Star Wars Galaxies, I feel almost the best part of Star Wars Galaxies, is on a new server when it first starts and nobody has any skills. That's when a lot of relationships form between players because people need help from one another. If you're a crafter, you don't have your business empire running. If you're a combat character, you can't hit anything with your blaster. You don't have any good blasters because no one's crafted them yet, and everyone has to go out into the galaxy and explore. that's what Finalizer is bringing for me at the minute. I'm loving it, and meeting lots of people and talking to them and building new relationships with new people. That's always fun in a social game like Star Wars Galaxies. So specifically, Finalizer is doing certain things that reinforce that. You will remember that the original version of Star Wars Galaxies, you could have one character per server, and Finalizer is doing that slightly. You can only log in one character. You can actually have two. So they've given you two to jump between, but you can only have one logged in at a time. And this reinforces the idea that your avatar becomes your persona in the game, and you can't jump between alts. This is something that I really like, and I feel like it levels the playing field on a server like Star Wars Galaxies Legends, for instance. Although it's lovely to have many different characters, there are downsides to it. People can be pretty much self-sufficient. They can do everything in the game. There's there's not as much need for interdependence between characters, and that is part of the design decision to lock things down to one character, which Finalizer has. Another aspect is the fact that, say for instance, another convenience that was brought in later is that maintenance on your harvesters, these are automated mining installations out in the universe. Later on, they made it so that if these things run out of maintenance, you have to pay a certain amount to keep them running. It would pull from your bank, and so as long as you had money in your bank, you will be okay. Now they've done it so that you have to actually go out to these harvesters. Again, it's busy work, but if you're a crafter, it makes you go out into the world and maintaining your fleet of harvesters, maintaining your industry that's out in the world. That's an aspect of being a crafter that I think works, and without it, things become just a little bit too easy. So they have that as well. People might be interested in Jedi, what they're doing with Jedi. I think it's not exactly correct in terms of how these things rolled out in the live game, but they have gone with the village, if you remember that, where in place of the hollow grind, which assigns people to master random professions, it's toxic for the game. They've not put that in. It's a smart move not to put that in, and replace it with the village system that came a little bit later, which is essentially, I mean, it's a series of quests, but it's essentially a group of NPCs telling you to go out and grind a certain type of XP for reward, and you turn in these rewards, and eventually you get enough kind of rep with them to fulfill the various missions. It kind of takes away the randomness and the hollow grind, which profession, and it stops people just randomly rolling professions in order to get a Jedi. It tells you specifically what to do, the village, and you can do it pretty quick. So people who want Jedi can go for that route. I think it's the right decision. I do understand the need to put Jedi in there. Personally, I've always felt like this time period, Star Wars Galaxies should never have had Jedi in the first place, but I understand that people want them. That ship has sailed. It's not really a debate worth having at this stage. It has them, and people are always going to want them. So if you are going to implement them in a way that is makes the most sense, and the village definitely does. I had forgotten how enjoyable the pre-Cu version of the game is in terms of the world and how it feels. The spawning and how NPCs interacted changed hugely over the life cycle of Star Wars Galaxies, and many of the intricacies kind of fell away. So as an example, I went out into the wilderness with a friend of mine, grinding some layers, and we were able to observe the fauna, the creatures of the galaxy interacting. For instance, a predator animal will stalk prey and kill the prey. It did that to one of the missions that we'd taken. It kind of cleared out the first spawn of prey creatures that we were there to kill, so it had done our job for us. At that point, it's kind of spotted us and started tracking us. It's going to stalk us and try and kill us as well. This kind of thing didn't happen in as immersive a way with the later stage of the game. The kind of NPCs just appeared, the creatures appeared, and they didn't have that level of simulation and interaction. It really jumped out at me when I was like, I'd forgotten that that kind of thing happens in the pre-CU version of Galaxies, and it was a really pleasant surprise. It really drew me into that moment, gave me and my friend a fun encounter that we were kind of, is it tracking us? Can it smell us? Because we were going hundreds of meters and it was still like, it wasn't attacking us, but it was tracking where we were, where we'd moved from. Forgot about all that stuff. The original devs of this game, I think, I wish they had been given more time, and I would be really, really curious to know how this pre-CU version of Galaxies would have evolved if it hadn't skewed off into the CU and then the NGE. It would be really, really interesting. Ravcost is making a new game at the minute and I'm kind of curious to see what that is going to be like. For that reason, I'm just really interested in the simulation aspects. So yeah, is Star Wars Galaxies Emu worth playing at this stage in 2022? We are literally, this is the first day of 2022. I would say yes. If you're a former Star Wars Galaxies player and you remember fondly the early stage of the game, this is definitely the server to go on. If you are a later stage Star Wars Galaxies player, I might point you towards one of the NG or CU servers. There's more NG, and obviously I would point people to Legends, but I would say don't dismiss the earlier servers. Try both versions, because I can definitely see benefits to both of them. For instance, like later in the NG, they were able to, later stage Star Wars Galaxies NG, they were able to implement a lot of kind of heroics high level content that would have been difficult with the combat system of the pre-CU, because it's somewhat janky broken. But the later stage has its janky brokenness as well, in that the animations become decoupled from what you're doing in the game. There's a disconnect between what you're seeing on screen and what is actually happening. When you go back to the pre-CU, you can see the original design, and although it's slower and maybe there's less intricacy in it, it can be broken with things like buffs and builds that stack certain defenses, so you can become godlike in this game. In the pre-CU game, it actually feels a little bit better, because everything, the animations are timed to what you're doing. You lay down with your rifle, you take aim, you go into cover, you do a sniper shot, and all of these things you get the feedback. So slower but more defined and solid. The later game much faster and less exploitable, but a less feeling of satisfaction, because your character is kind of decoupled from the underlying mechanics of the game. Because I don't know why it exactly happened, because it happened over a sweep of time with all these changes. But I think the main thing was they tried to speed it up hugely, and then the animations kind of that were baked into the game didn't work with this faster style of combat. So it's weird. Anyway, so like I say, if you've never played Star Wars Galaxies, it's a classic MMO that I think is definitely worth playing. And on Finalizer at the minute, there are lots of people starting out who are very willing to help. That was the thing that was a little off-putting going into the Emu, in that the Basilisk server had been around for so long. There are certain, there were people who were dedicated to helping, but they were few and far between. At the moment in Finalizer, everyone's kind of in the same boat, helping one another with skills, certain things that they need. It's been a long time since I messaged an image designer, which is a class in Star Wars Galaxies, and got them to migrate my stats, and went to a tent where they kind of did this service for me, and we got to know each other while that's going on. The pre-CU has all these systems in it that encourage socialization, which the later stage of the game doesn't so much. So as I say, they both versions have pros and cons, but I think Finalizer is definitely worth trying out. The pedigree of the team is obvious. They've been doing this for a long time, steadily working on this emulation of Galaxies, and working towards a final release. Finalizer is not the final release, it's another test server, and they have been working all this time towards an official kind of, this is the version that will never be wiped. We're still waiting for that, but it's pretty much there at this stage. They're polishing, and then the original, hopefully at some point they will get that final server, but don't hold off for that final server. If you, who knows when it's going to come at this stage, hopefully soon, but if you want to play, just start playing on Finalizer. The one thing that is missing, even when we get that 1.0 release of the Emu, is going to be jump to light speed. It's sorely missed. I really miss it. It adds insult to injury, because in every starport there are the Starship terminals there, we're just waiting to be used, and I keep running to them to launch my Starship. It's not there. If you're desperate for jump to light speed right now, you're going to have to go to Legends or one of those NGE servers, because in the Pre-Cu it's not there. They are working on a version of it, but you know, it's taken a long time to get to this stage with the ground game. Who knows how long the space is going to take to launch. We'll have to see, but it's not there. Be aware of that. I do miss it. All right, I hope this video was entertaining for you. Over the Christmas period, I've been creating a lot of videos for people to watch. I did think about doing some Christmas themed videos, but they end up slightly gimmicky. I don't want to do gimmicks. I want to do something that I know people are going to be interested in, and there are a lot of Star Wars Galaxies fans on my channel, so I thought I would pump out a load of those videos. So there is a whole series to watch in my playing the early stage and getting some skills in Finalizer. A good few episodes of that to watch. I will link it up here for you. There are also what was the other thing I was going to mention? Yeah, and the people who have watched that series, thank you very much. YouTube is a weird beast these days. People used to be able to do Let's Plays on YouTube, but they are not so popular now. So when people watch a series of videos like you guys have been doing with that emulator series, I really appreciate it. They are old school, very straightforward, just Let's Plays with me talking, and when it happens that people enjoy that, I appreciate it, because that's how I started my channel, what I started my channel doing, and I would really love to do more of it. The fact is that YouTube doesn't always reward that these days, unless you're already established. It's very hard to get anywhere doing that, but when the opportunity arises, I do like to do it. So thank you for watching those videos. I've enjoyed doing them. I hope you're looking forward to 2022. Less COVID, more positivity in the world. That's what I want. That's my mission for this year. Just put positivity out there. I'm not interested in bashing things and being cynical. I want to be positive in life, and that's my philosophy for myself. So whatever I put up on the channel, I'm hoping to just make it positive and focus on positive topics. That's I don't want to spend my time being cynical. That's just not how I want to spend my downtime. So I will see you very soon. Thank you for watching this video, and bye for now.